Rain was beating hard on the roof when the shouting began. "Mama, please open the door." 24-year-old Emeka yelled as he ran into the compound, soaked from head to toe. His mother, Grace, rushed out with a lantern in her hand. Before she could speak, Emeka pointed towards the road. "There is a man lying in the ditch. A trailer almost hit him. We need to help him." Grace followed him through the rain. The stranger was badly injured, his clothes torn and covered in mud, blood mixed with rainwater around him. Emeka bent down. "Mama, help me carry him." But the moment Grace saw the stranger's face, the lantern slipped from her hand. She froze. For a few seconds, she stared at him as if she had seen a ghost. "Mama," Emeka called. Grace suddenly grabbed the stranger's shoulder. "We must take him inside now." "What about me? I'm hurt too," Emeka said, showing the deep cut on his arm. Grace did not even look at him. "Leave your arm. Help me carry this man." That was the first time Emeka felt something break inside him. The choice that changed everything. They carried the stranger into the house. Grace cleaned his wounds, changed his clothes, and sat beside him through the night. Emeka sat alone in the next room, pressing a cloth against his bleeding arm. Not once did his mother ask if he was in pain. By morning, the whole neighborhood knew. Old Mama Bisi whispered to another woman. Grace ignored her own son because of a stranger. "Something is wrong." Another replied, "Maybe the man is rich. These days people can do anything for money." Emeka heard every word. When he entered the room, Grace was feeding the stranger warm pap. "Mama, who is this man?" he asked. Grace avoided his eyes. "His name is Daniel. He needs rest." "And I don't?" Silence. Emeka laughed bitterly. "So that is it. A stranger enters this house and suddenly I no longer matter." Grace's face tightened. "Don't talk like that. Then tell me the truth." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. The silence hurt more than any answer. A house filled with secrets. For the next 3 days, Grace barely left Daniel's side. She cooked special meals for him. She checked his temperature every hour. At night, she slept on a mat beside his bed. Emeka watched all of it with growing anger. Daniel himself seemed uncomfortable. He was a man in his early 50s, with tired eyes and a scar across his forehead. Whenever Emeka entered the room, Daniel looked away. One evening, Emeka finally exploded. "Enough! This is my father's house. Why is this man here? Why are you treating him like family?" Grace stood up quickly. "Lower your voice." "No, I want answers." Daniel tried to speak. "Young man, your mother is only helping me." "I was not talking to you," Emeka snapped. Grace stepped between them. "You will respect him." Emeka stared at her in disbelief. "Respect him? You have never defended me this way in your life." Grace's eyes filled with tears, but she said nothing. Emeka stormed out of the house. The stranger's warning. That night, rain began again. Emeka returned late and paused outside the window when he heard voices inside. Daniel was speaking softly. "Grace, he is beginning to suspect." "I know," Grace replied. "You should tell him before someone else does." "Not yet. If he learns the truth now, I may lose him forever." Emeka's heart pounded. "The truth? What truth?" He pushed the door open. "What are you hiding from me?" Grace jumped to her feet. Daniel slowly stood despite his injuries. "Emeka, calm down," Grace pleaded. "No. Tell me now. Why did you choose this man over me that night?" Grace looked at Daniel. Daniel looked back at her. Neither spoke. Emeka shook his head. "I understand now. Whatever secret exists between you two is more important than your own son? He turned and walked out again. A dangerous recovery. The next morning, Emeka decided to find answers himself. He went to the old wooden box where his mother kept family documents. Grace had always forbidden him from touching it. Inside were faded photographs, hospital papers, and letters tied with a red ribbon. One photograph caught his attention. It showed a younger Grace standing beside a man. Not Daniel, a different man entirely. On the back was written, Grace and Samuel, 1998. Emeka frowned. Samuel was the father he had heard about all his life, the man who supposedly died before he was born. Then why had Grace reacted to Daniel as if she knew him deeply? He continued searching and found a folded letter. The paper was old and partly torn. If anything happens to me, Daniel must never come near the child. Emeka stopped reading. Daniel must never come near the child. His hands began to shake. Before he could read the rest, the front door slammed open. Grace had returned home earlier than expected. She saw the papers scattered across the floor and her face turned pale. Emeka, she whispered, where did you get that letter? Emeka held it up. Who is Daniel? Grace took one step forward, then another. Her voice trembled. Put that letter down. There are things you don't understand. Then make me understand. Emeka shouted. Grace opened her mouth to answer, but before a single word came out, a loud knock shook the door. 3 heavy knocks. Then a man's voice called from outside. Open up. We are looking for Daniel. Grace's face lost all color. Daniel, who had just entered from the back room, whispered only one sentence. They found me. The room fell silent. The knocking grew louder. Open the door, the voice shouted again. Grace's hand trembled. Daniel slowly stepped backward. Emeka looked from his mother to the stranger. For the first time, he saw real fear in both their faces. Who are they? Emeka demanded. Daniel took a deep breath. They are not here to talk. Before anyone could react, Grace grabbed Emeka's hand. Don't open that door. But if we don't, they will break it. They must never see Daniel. Emeka pulled his hand away. I am tired of secrets. Ignoring his mother's warning, he walked to the door and opened it. 3 men stood outside. They were dressed in black raincoats, their shoes covered in mud from the storm. The oldest of them smiled. Good evening. We are looking for a man named Daniel. Emeka crossed his arms. And who are you? The man reached into his pocket and showed what looked like an official identity card, but he quickly put it away before Emeka could read it. We have been searching for him for many years. Grace suddenly stepped forward. There is no Daniel here. The man looked straight at her. Grace! Her eyes widened. You still remember me? He asked. Grace whispered. Victor. Emeka's head turned sharply. You know him too? No one answered. Victor looked past Grace into the house. I know Daniel is inside. Daniel slowly walked into the sitting room. I will go, he said quietly. Grace immediately stood in front of him. No, Victor smiled. So after all these years, you are still protecting him? Daniel looked at Victor with tired eyes. This has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with them, Victor replied. You have been hiding long enough. Victor and the other 2 men entered the house. Nobody sat down. The tension was too heavy. Victor looked at Emeka. You deserve to know the truth. Grace quickly interrupted. No. Victor ignored her. 25 years ago, your mother, Daniel, and I worked together. Emeka frowned. My mother? Yes. We were investigating a powerful criminal network that trafficked children across different states. Emeka looked at Grace in disbelief. You never told me that. Grace lowered her eyes. I wanted that life buried forever. Victor continued. We rescued many children, but one operation went terribly wrong. Daniel closed his eyes. It was my fault. Victor nodded. The criminals escaped because Daniel trusted the wrong person. Many innocent people died. Grace began crying quietly. And your father? Victor stopped speaking. Emeka's heart raced. My father what? Victor looked at him with pity. Your father was killed during that operation. The room became silent. Emeka felt as if the ground beneath him had disappeared. So my father didn't die from an accident? No, he was murdered. Emeka slowly turned towards his mother. You lied to me. Grace could barely speak. I was trying to protect you. For 24 years, she nodded with tears running down her face. Emeka looked at Daniel with anger burning in his eyes. So because of your mistake, my father died. Daniel nodded. I have lived with that guilt every single day. You should have. I know. Grace quickly stepped in. No, Emeka, you don't understand everything. There is more. Emeka laughed bitterly. Of course, there is more. There is always more. Grace looked at Daniel. Daniel slowly removed a small leather pouch hanging around his neck. Inside was an old silver necklace. Grace gasped. She hadn't seen it in years. Daniel handed it to Emeka. Open it. Inside the necklace was a tiny faded picture. One side showed Grace as a young woman. The other side, Emeka froze. It was a baby. On the back was written, My son, I will always protect you, Samuel. Emeka looked confused. This was my father's? Daniel nodded. He gave it to me just before he died. He made me promise something. What promise? Daniel's voice broke. He made me swear that no matter what happened, I must protect you and your mother. Emeka stared at him. You? Yes, but I failed. I couldn't save Samuel. I couldn't keep my promise. So I spent 24 years searching for both of you. Grace finally spoke. I ran away. Everyone looked at her. I blamed Daniel for my husband's death. I never wanted to see him again. So I changed towns. I changed our surname. I cut off every connection. Daniel quietly added. I searched everywhere. I never stopped. Grace, in her own words, said, I decided to leave because of my husband's death. I cut off ties because being around there and always seeing him reminded me of everything. Emeka became calm, looking more sober. Grace wiped away her tears. The night Daniel collapsed on the road. I recognized him immediately. I also knew something else. Emeka looked at her. What? Grace's voice shook. The people chasing Daniel are the same people who killed your father. And for the first time, Emeka knew the truth and realized his mother's actions. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. AfriTales 247, we love to hear from you again. And please don't forget to like, share and subscribe so you don't miss out on our interesting stories. Bye.